Parole was tough. I had very strict restrictions. I had to report weekly to parole, and with that came a fine that I would have to pay each week. I also was required to pay into a victim's fund, so that was an extra payment on top of the parole fine. I had to attend a weekly counseling session, which I also had to pay for. It was a 2-hour group session, which required me to miss work to be at. I had to follow driving routes that were mapped out for me, and rules about who I spoke with, who I engaged with. I had to be very aware at all times about who was in my immediate circle. And that's because every 3 months I had to take a polygraph test, and they would ask me questions about my rules. And of course, you have to answer honestly. So any falter in my rules or following my rules would result in repercussions and ultimately going back to prison. So I lived in fear constantly. But I do want to say that my parole officer was an angel. I believe firmly that the Lord put her in my life. She was an encourager. She was hard, very strict for the rules, but she saw me, she saw my effort. Any hurdle put before me or any hoop put before me, I jumped through or over happily, double time, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going back. But she was wonderful.
I was scared to death of parole because, being in there so long, you see people leave and then they come back, and then they leave and then they come back, and you hear all these horror stories about parole. And honestly, I have not had one single problem with parole. I'm honest with parole, and they see that. They've never had a problem with me. I was on parole a year, and they lowered me to low supervision to where I only have to report every 3 months now instead of every month. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're not gonna have a problem with parole, and they're gonna do whatever they can to help you stay on parole and to stay out of prison.
With parole, I did have some stipulations, which was a victim fund because I had a victim involved. So I had my supervision fee and a victim fee, and it's all collided together to be $20 a month. I also had the class that was required of me, which was like $20 a week. And so I had to learn how to lean on my support system in the very beginning because clearly I didn't have that money. Now, parole did give me $50 when I first got out, and then it gave me $50 when I got to my first appointment. So I kind of managed that and paid my few months of parole up a little bit to give me a little time to build. And then I just kind of leaned on my support system to help me with some of those things. But my other things that were required of me, they didn't cost, but just maintaining the basic victim fee and supervision fee, and you don't have a job, can be stressful and challenging, but I did have a support system that did help me at times.
It was a challenge too. That was kind of challenging at first, getting out. And you have all these requirements that I have to meet with them. And it's like, you have to go to class once a week. I had to go for a UA once a week. And I had to go 42 miles one way to go see parole. And that was a challenge because I didn't have a vehicle. I was having to rely on other people. And I didn't want to get out and have to rely on someone else. I wanted to rely on me, and I couldn't. And I had to face that and be okay with help when I wanted to do it on my own, no matter what. You still have to have help at first, so don't expect to come out and you'll be able to do it because you're not. So don't have the reality of, oh, I can do it no matter, yeah, we can, but one step at a time, not one mountain at a time, So, that's what I had to remember. But I had to monitor for 3 months as well. And that was kind of nerve-wracking too, because it would go off at a certain time. Even if I was in the house, sometimes it would go off, and so I was a nervous wreck. And I left the house one day too early because I had to be at work, and I didn't let my monitor guy know. Just totally forgot about it and went. And the thing was, the monitor was going off for a whole hour, and I was a nervous wreck. So, but when I finally got a hold of him, He just told me, it's okay, I got you because I know where you are, so. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't have that to worry about. But this is a whole new world for me, so I'm learning.
When I arrived at parole, they told me I owed a lot of money as far as my school fees, and I did not have any fines left. I just had surcharges on my driver's license. I was very blessed with that. So I saved on my goals and was able to pay off all my surcharges and my fees that I would needed to. However, when I went to go get my driver's license, they told me I still owed some money on my surcharges. So it's really important to go on your DMV and check any driver's license numbers, ID numbers, or anything that you may have had. Check every number because there could be some old surcharges or fines on those. And until those are paid, you cannot get a license.
Writing the courts while you're in prison is the best way to tackle this huge task, because it can be for many. It wasn't something I personally had to do, but one of the jobs I had when I got out was being a chaplain at Harris County Sheriff's Office. And it was there that I learned through inmates and through the services that they required me to help them with that this should be taken care of when you are incarcerated. That inmates are not taking advantage of this, where fines will be lifted. You can even get warrants, time served on warrants if you know you have outstanding warrants. Even now with student loans, they will stop that interest while you're in prison. So they need to start this action while incarcerated.
I have like $6,000, almost $7,000 worth of driving tickets out of Oregon, the state of Oregon, that I have to pay off in order to get my license clear there. But I've been paying on it, and I should be able to get my license soon. I'll tell you, it's very costly trying to fix everything that you messed up when you were in your addiction or you were in whatever you were doing before you went to prison. It costs a lot to get out of that. And you don't realize it until it's time to do it. And then sometimes you just get overwhelmed and you're like, why do I have to do all of this? Why do I have to pay all this? Why do I have to fix all this? Why can't it just be easy like the next person, But it's not, and it took me a lot of years to screw it up, and so it'll take me a couple to fix it. And I just got to keep struggling with it, because sometimes I don't want to pay those fines. I want to go blow my money on something else, or I want to be able to, send it to my granddaughter or whatever. But I try to just stay responsible, and I just, say, okay, I'm working to pay these bills because I want something better in my life. And it does, it feels like sometimes, why do I go to work just to pay bills that I racked up, 20 years ago or how many ever years ago? And you're like, I go to work for nothing. I work every day, all day until I'm so tired. I don't get to go spend my money on anything except for bills. But in the long run, though, that's gonna be what is important, because as soon as you get all that back stuff done, then you can have a life that's rewarding, and you can have the fun things. And I still do fun things, like me and Geneva went to the concert, and we spent money on that. But you have to do some fun things, otherwise you just get to where you don't want to do any of it. And so you have to remember to give yourself a break and go do something rewarding, otherwise you won't feel like doing it anymore.